say it's a solved problem. On another level, you can say that no formal orthography has been defined for probably most of the languages. But that's also not a very helpful thing to say, in the sense that a lot of the people you would go talk to will have some idea of how to write it, even though they might not agree with each other very well. It is a problem, but I'm of the opinion that it's not a big problem, because if it's not well established, people are probably used to it not being very well established. And then the unestablished state is the established state in a way. So when you see a lot of spelling variation, it's unlikely to really bother you. You won't see it as, a spelling mistake. You won't think of it that way. You'll think of, oh, it's a guy who was taught in a French school, maybe. And I'm coming from an English school, or something like that. As I say, I'm not the best one to be saying that. There are languages really struggling with orthographic things, like the language Vai that I talked about. Less than 1 million speakers, I can't remember, I think about 400,000. They've got a syllabary that only entered Unicode a year ago or so. I think there's one font and one keyboard somewhere that you might be able to try. When I tried the font, it was still missing a few code points. They are taught that at school, so all of them know how to read and write that. But so many documents have been done in Latin script simply because they want to use computers and they want to publish and they want to print and they want to use electronic media, and they had no way of doing that before, or no good way anyway. Even for Mko, the one I had the screenshot going right to left, the first word processor in an African language was actually for Mko. It was in the 80s already. But it wasn't Unicode, obviously, and you couldn't import or export anything with it as far as I know. But people have used it quite a bit, and I understand that those children are still taught that at school, and it's quite a big language. I think there's quite a few million speakers. So I'm sure they have started writing it also in Latin script. And you could now say that there are questions about the orthography, but it's not really the case. Like, there are questions for the wrong reasons. I meet some people in South Africa. I showed you that T with the little circumflex below. And they say, no, we don't type that way. I say, yeah, I know you don't type that way, but you should be typing that way, because they don't know that you can type that way. They think that because you can't, now we'll stop doing it. They just don't realize that you can. You just need to go download some piece of software. Or just select it. You know, people, that's why I'm saying we need to change people's perceptions also. We need just to inform them that it is possible.
Well, it's same in Ireland, I think. A lot of people don't know the type of father, I'd say, the accent for it. It's just controlled out.
Yeah, so I mean, people in France don't have this problem because they're very aware of things being adapted to their market. They have subtitles for almost all films. So there's a whole culture of things are adapted for me. I need to go look for the adapted version, or well, when I go to the shop, the adapted version will be there. More likely, if you go to buy a computer in France, all the software is in French. It has a French keyboard layout, and if you get extras, even like an encyclopedia or things like that, it will be a French encyclopedia. You don't get Encyclopedia Britannica with your laptop. So there are very different mindsets there. Whereas as soon as you're in a country where there's another dominant language, where the dominant language is English, then it changes the dynamic. So Breton people living in France are very aware of localization and that, you know, it probably is possible and so on, because they know it has been done for French. And same in Spain. Like the Catalan people know that things are adapted for Spanish, so it can be done for Catalan, Basque and Galician as well. It might be a matter of who should do it, or they don't realize that they can do it, or you know, that they can be involved, or where to find it. But mostly, if you just know to Google for it, you will find it with Google if you try.
When you talk about volunteers, are they from their own African countries, or normally from like Western countries?
They're usually from their home countries. I know that the translator doing most of the work for Songhai is currently studying in Switzerland. So he's there at the moment. But I mean, he's from, sorry, I can't remember which country he's from. The language is spoken in a few. So he's currently studying then, but I mean, he's a mother tongue speaker and grew up there. Hopefully will be going back as well. I mean, hopefully, I don't know what his dreams and life ideals are. we're not making use of, Swahili students from the US, really, if that's what you're asking.
So they're normally from universities or schools? Or
My guess is that a lot of them are from universities, but I mean, we're not primarily targeting or limiting in that way. So I know some of the people we're working with in South Africa are at a translation agency. Some people from Uganda are university students. I think they graduated last year. I think some of the Swahili people as well, university students. And some of the others, to be honest, I don't know.
Yeah, most of the time I think, most of the time it is from the universities. The reason is because people will be aware when they start learning and then start to know, they try to be a volunteer at that time. That's why many volunteers from...
And students have time.
Yeah.
The other thing is that universities tend to have some of the best connectivity in Africa, I think. Because it's a very big organization that has some money to get a connection. It doesn't mean it goes faster than 3 kilobytes a second for you personally at your computer, but you can get to a website at some stage during the day. We had an event, I'll show it to you in the next presentation, where we had a really big translation event with, and we needed to install some software on the servers. And it was a Linux system, and I thought, okay, this is easy, and I said, okay, install it. And then I looked at the estimation for the download, and I realized it was only 2 days. And it didn't start in 4 hours. So I couldn't install this. I had to go look for a different piece of software that was smaller to download. There was like a proxy server I needed. And I went and I installed another one, just because it was smaller to download.
Or sometimes you might spend the night in the university, get connected even to send an email. Because sometimes the traffic might not be really, really good through the day. So what you do is you work offline, and then sometimes you have to stay the night in the university to send emails. It is so hard.
Realities, but I don't think insurmountable problems. Anything else about Unlock?
You mentioned that you're developing NLP or HLT tools, something like spell checkers and so on. So in order to develop these tools, you need primary resources like Lexica, Tagged Copra, Parallel Copra, and so on. Have you got these resources already, or you are developing these resources on your way using other tools?
When we developed the spell checkers in South Africa, we were able to do some harvesting from the web. Zulu is written without diacritics and so on, so the web corpora are fairly good quality. As I said, there are government websites and things like that. So we were able to find enough text on the internet for us to work with. In the case of Yoruba in Nigeria, the quality of what you find on the web is very bad. And in the case of Gikuyu in Kenya, he said basically there's nothing. And where it is on the web, it's written without the diacritics. So some of them have actually simply gotten people to type in stuff, which is really scary, but in the end, you get someone who can type fast. They can type in a book in, I don't know, it takes a while, but you can do that, and then you have something to work with. But no, I mean, the resources in African languages are really, really, really sparse. Even in South Africa, where a lot of the academics are working on really interesting things, it is a problem. There are people with speech corpora, there are people with bilingual corpora, but they hold on to them like this. It's really valuable, and there are not a lot of possibilities. There are people with money who want to buy more, and they can't find to buy more. So I believe that by giving people a keyboard and a font, and they can go write Wikipedia, it doesn't solve the problem for you wanting to do a spell checker now, but in 5 years there might be 10,000 articles in that language if you're lucky, and that might mean several thousands of unique words that you can start. You'll have a monolingual corpus. And if they use a CAT tool, they might have a translation memory, and you can have a bilingual corpus. And it's a start, but yes, it's a problem, and we'll only realize the extent when we start doing more of that. I mean, in South Africa, we're looking at spell checkers and machine translation, a few of those things, and we realize how big the problem is. So if you've got some in your Zulu corpus, please chat to me afterwards.
A very quick question.